So if you are in the police recruitment process or you're a serving police officer and you're in the police promotion process, you are going to have an interview and you're going to have to decide which structure am I going to utilize for my interview answers. In this video, I'm going to compare two structures. I'm going to compare Star with Saarl. I'm not even going to talk about Saar and Carl. I'm not going to confuse you, but that's the one that you'll find on Google. This is the one that we've designed, and actually there's more to this one. We can add some at the beginning, add some at the end, and there's a lot more detail in between, and I'm going to talk to you about why Saarl wins over Star every day of the week. So pin your ears back, folks. This one could make the difference between a pass and a fail. So before we continue, my name's Brendan from Bluelight. I'm the founder of Bluelight. I've been doing this now for 30 years. I've been in the police sector for 39 years. I'm a father of two amazing children. I'm the husband of the most amazing wife ever. And we've got a little cockapoo as well that I get to walk every day. But outside of my life in North Yorkshire, where we live, this is what I do. I help people, support people now for the police recruitment process, for promotion boards. I've got an amazing team of coaches around me. We've got over 200 years of management and coaching experience between us. And we work with people one-to-one, small groups, in order to succeed in the recruitment process, promotion process. And we come up with things that work, like this one, Saarl. And I'm going to compare the two today, and you see what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think about my comparison between the two. Let me know in the comments what you think about our Saarl model compared to the Star model. So let's get into it. Star. Now, you'll see this as advice from the College of Policing. Use the Star model. You'll see it as advice on Google if you look up how to answer interview questions, and it'll give you the Star model. The problem with it is it doesn't actually give you much detail, and it's the detail that's going to get you the pass. So in comparing the two, we've got an S at the very beginning. It stands for situation. Exactly the same. There's not much difference there, not much difference at all. However, the problem with the Star model is it doesn't provide all the little subheadings. So this is just like the title of the first chapter in your story, because you're aiming for an answer that's going to be like 4 or 5 minutes long. And if you don't have detail in each one of these constituent parts of your answer, then you're going to have an answer that's about a minute or two long, and it's just not long enough. So you need something that's a lot more detailed, and this is where we have little subheadings. And I'll give you a little sneak preview into some of those subheadings. These are the things that work every day of the week. Now, the first one in describing a situation is you need to describe why the thing that you were going to deal with was challenging or difficult. One of the big mistakes people make is they don't talk about something that's challenging or difficult. They just talk about something they do at work or doing when they're volunteering. And it's just, quite frankly, boring. I'm not on the edge of my seat. I want to hear about something that was challenging and difficult for you and hard to deal with. Secondly, we use impact factors. So what was the impact of that difficult thing on you? What was the impact of that difficult thing on the other person? What was the impact on the team? What was the impact on the organization? And what was the end impact or possible impact on the end user, the customer? And then we look at things like feelings from different perspectives. Your feelings, other people's feelings. And by doing this, we're providing a really good context for the answer. We're providing a sort of rich picture, but we can't be too long at that point. We want to occupy about a minute there, because otherwise it's just going to be too lengthy, and it's going to eat into the important part, which is the next bit and this bit here. But they're all important, but this bit's really important. Now, in the Star model, they talk about task. The task I set myself, or even worse than that, the task I was set. Now, I don't want to hear as an interviewer about a task you were set. I want to hear about something that you did that was innovative, maybe, or something where you showed some initiative, where you've got off your backside and decided, well, if no one else is going to deal with it, I am. I want to hear about that kind of thing. I want to hear about something that's different, not sort of process policy, your stuff you do every day. And so I want to hear about that. I want to hear about something that's got more interest to it, not a task that you were set, and not a task that I set myself, because quite frankly, no one talks like that. So why are you going to start talking like that at your interview? They're going to sit there and think, why is this person talking in a strange way? So especially if you start using buzzwords from the CVF, that's just a big no, just no. Competency and values framework, for those of you who might not have been introduced to it yet. So we used something else. I decided to use something else years ago, and it sits within something called the National Decision Model, which is a police way of making decisions. So those of you in the promotion process will know this. And so I decided to use aim instead. So instead of saying task, we say the aim, what I was aiming to achieve, my aim was. It just sounds a lot better. It sounds more natural. And the other thing it gives you the opportunity to do is to introduce some options. So when you set yourself a task, people always often fall into the trap of actually saying what you're going to do and then telling them what you actually did. And it's the same thing. Whereas your aim is different. You're talking about the end result. And it sounds very policey. It's one of the things I used to say as an inspector all the time. Well, what are we aiming to achieve here? What does success look like? What does normal look like when we get this situation and we enable it to become everyday normal? What does that look and feel like? So sits very much within the NDM. Having the options sits within the NDM, and we've got ways of deciding which option is the best one, what your rationale behind discarding some of them, and why you chose the option that you did. Making sense so far? Making sense so far? All right, awesome. One of the things we then find is this phase here, the action phase, is exactly the same. But again, we emphasize a lot more detail under our model. So a lot more detail under the action phase. When we get people coming to us who may have failed their police recruitment process, failed their final interview, or someone's failed their interview at a promotion board, we'll have a conversation with them first to decide whether we can actually help them, and they can decide whether we are suitable to help them. It works both ways. We have that sort of 1 hour coaching call first. There's no commitment in it. But one of the things that we often find when we're doing that sort of diagnostic is the reason why they failed is because of a lack of detail in this phase here. Might have been a lack of structure completely, but invariably it's a lack of detail. We had someone come to us just recently who said they had feedback that said I wasn't concise enough, and they were saying, well, my answers were only about 2 minutes long. They couldn't be any more concise. If they were, I'd stop talking. They didn't mean that. What they meant was concise as in a lack of detail. So if your answer's 2 minutes long and you're covering all of that in 2 minutes, there's just not enough detail. And it's the detail that demonstrates the behaviours that they're looking for, so they can mark you against the behaviours in the matrix they've got that's based on the CVF. And that's how they're going to mark you. That's how they're going to mark you. So you need to get this bit right. Now, when we do the diagnostic questions, we'll test people out with some simple questions, very standard questions. Tell me about a time when you've had to make a difficult decision. Tell me about a time when you worked with others in order to solve a problem. Tell me about a time when you've supported someone who was vulnerable. Standard questions I was asked in 1985 when I joined the police, and questions I've been asked at numerous interview panels and boards since then. So we'll test them out, just see where they are. So we want to find out where you are and where you want to be, and then we'll work out a bespoke plan of how to get you there. And that's what we do well. We're awesome at doing that. We're so awesome, actually, that if you don't succeed, we'll keep working with you. If you don't succeed a second time, we'll give you a full refund. And how about that? That's not bad, is it? We'll give you a full refund. So when we do that diagnostic, what we find is a lot of people will tell us what they did, but not how they did it. It's like show and tell. They'll show me what they did, but they won't tell me how they did it. So it's the how that's so important. That's what gets you the marks. And we have to dig really deep, because the language people use in the action phase often is just things like, I made sure that I collaborated with everyone and I consulted with everyone. I held a meeting where I consulted with everyone. I mean, that's what you did, but I want to know how you did it. I want to know how you listened, as an example. How you listened carefully to someone. And they'll say, well, I just listened to them. Yeah, but how did they know that you listened to them? There's lots of things we can introduce there that are just going to tick boxes everywhere. But if you don't know what those boxes are, you don't know they need ticking. Does that make sense? But after doing this for 30 years now, we know what boxes need ticking. But at the same time, we've got to balance that balance that against being authentic in your answers as well. So that's a really important part. That's the bulk of your answer. And it's still the same. The only difference we've got so far is a T instead of an A. We've still got an R for the result. However, when you look up on Google how to deliver the result, it always talks about make sure you deliver a positive result. Well, the world doesn't work like that, not in policing. As soon as you've got a plan to deal with something, an aim to deal with something, where you've got an option and then you start executing it, as soon as you start involving other people, it doesn't go to plan. Nothing challenging or difficult in policing ever goes to plan perfectly. Why? Because people get involved. People will always prevent a plan from being what you set it out to be. Always, every day of the week. So things won't go to plan. And I want to know about that, because this thing that you're talking about was difficult and challenging. So if it's difficult and challenging, things don't go to plan. And I want to hear about that. I want some authenticity from you around that. I want to know how you felt and how you dealt with those feelings. I want to know what the result was. And we use like an 80-20 rule, that like 80% of it went well, but there's 20% of it just didn't go to plan. And this is the perfect segue then to the L, which we add on to our model. And the L stands for learning. Now we've got to be really clever in how we deliver this part here, because most people fall into the trap of saying something like, I learned it was good, it's good to ask open questions. Or it's, I learned the power of collaborating with others. And they're just delivering cliched statements of fact that don't actually tell me much about the individual learning you had that you can take to the next time you deal with something differently. So we want very, very specific learning there. And we spend a lot of time with our clients developing that, because it's one of the things that a lot of people don't include in their answers. And it's one of the things that's going to make all the difference, Even if there's not a specific part of the marking guide around learning, it will impress the interviewers, even at an unconscious level, but probably at a conscious level. Now, why do I say this? Well, most interviewers have had zero training. I mean, I was an interviewer in the police. My interview training was about 2 hours long with a coffee break. And so we didn't actually cover that much. Just an introduction to the competency framework we used back then, and an introduction into how we actually get the questions from that competency framework. Very little to do with actual interview technique. We didn't do role plays or anything. And I know from talking to people in our promotion academy who do the recruit interviews that most of them have had zero training, and most of them have very little in the way of quality assurance during the day. There might be a little bit, but not much. So there's this huge variance in assessor capability, and huge variance in what they believe is good. And they don't understand the CVF neither. I know this. I've not come across anyone actually in policing who can explain the CVF well. Things like why the competencies have got 3 levels and the values have only got 1, but the behaviours are the same. No one can explain the questions like that and other questions. So stop fretting about the CVF. Be familiar with the content of the CVF, but don't let it lead you down the wrong road, because you'll start talking absolute BS and start using phrases from it. Now, if the interviewers don't understand the CVF, just as much as you don't understand it, what they're looking for? Well, if it's a recruit interview, what's going through their mind is, can I see this person on my team? If it's a promotion interview, what they're thinking is, can I see this person on my team? So if they can, there'll be a bias towards you. And the way of getting a bias towards you is to talk about the learning. So if it's really impactful and from the heart, and there is a way of detailing this, which we look at in the Academy program, but it absolutely makes all the difference. Now, we can go one step further. The STAR model kind of stopped, didn't it? It sort of stopped at R. We can take things one step further. So just there, we can have knowledge and understanding. This is how we hybridize our answer. So it's a rear-facing answer at this moment in time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hybridize it by discussing with the interviewers how you would develop this particular skill, this value, this behavior, and how you would implement it in the role of police officer. Or if you're going for a promotion, how you'd implement this in the next rank. So what we're doing is we're turning it into a forward-facing question answer at this point here. So when we're talking about your knowledge and understanding of that behavior, value, or skill, and how you would implement that as a police officer or implement that as the next rank, you are putting the icing on the cake. It's only really our clients and those of you who've watched this video who will do this, but you've got to know how to structure this as well. You've got to know how to structure this. Otherwise, your answer could just take far too long. So you've got to nail this in about a minute, and there is a way of doing that, which we show people how to do on the Academy program. Now, you might be thinking that's a lot, and it is. So we don't take people into the hybridizing things unless we really need to. When we say need to, we recognize that this individual is doing awesomely in the one-to-ones, and we can stretch them even further to get an even higher mark. But if you just do situation, aim, action, result, and learning, then you've got the basics. Remember, we've got loads of little subheadings in all of these. I've described some of them for you, but this is how we have a 5-minute answer, not 5-minute answers of waffle, but 5-minute answers of concise detail that's going to tick boxes everywhere. Bearing in mind, it's not a tick box process that you're going through, but you do have some boxes to tick. And it's making sure that by using this structure and all the little subheadings, it gives you the opportunity to tick those boxes, but your answers still have to have detailed authenticity behind them. Is that making sense so far? Let me know in the comments, by the way, after you've watched this, if this is making sense. So we can go one step further. And you're thinking, what, really? Yes, we can. And this works especially well for promotion boards. I wouldn't necessarily say you need to do it for the recruit process, but for promotion boards, I'm looking for someone who, especially if it's competitive, who is going to make an amazing difference on my division, on my borough, or wherever it is you work, whatever you call it. So invariably, it might be a superintendent who's on the board. If it's an inspector or chief inspector rank you're going for, might be a ACC or deputy. It depends on the force, depends on the size of the force. But you've got someone there who's looking for something a little bit more than just someone who can use one of these models to answer a question. They're looking for value added. And so what we can do now is this. We can use HR, and that stands for hook and result. So we start off with a hook. So if the question was something like, can you tell me about a time when you have collaborated with partner agencies in order to solve a difficult or challenging problem? So the hook would be something around a time when everything just went south. So, and it's okay to use this if you're going for promotion, by the way. You know, there will be something in your force, probably, you know, the death of a child, or the death of a vulnerable person, and the serious case review will highlight invariably a lack of a joined up collaborative approach. So the hook is you really pushing your finger into that pain point. And you might be thinking, yeah, but you're just reminding them of something that didn't go well in the force. Well, yeah, because what we're going to do then is we're going to talk about the result. So in this answer, I'm going to talk to you about how I managed a complex situation involving X, Y, and Z. And the way I managed to resolve this situation was through a partnership collaborative approach. So now they know what the result is. It's like, all right, I've got the hook, I'm interested. The result, I want to hear about this result. This sounds really interesting. And you need to get them on the edge of the seat. If you want to get promoted, I'm sort of into promotion land now because I wouldn't advocate this for potential recruits unless we can get you to that stage, in which case you're going to be like top of the pile. Honestly, you'd be top of the pile in terms of your scores. But for interview panels for promotion, this bit really makes the difference. Because the other thing is, it's not like other people. Other people don't do this. They just start off with a situation. You're starting off with something different. So it's setting you to a side, they'll remember you, not for remembering you's sakes, but because they're going to remember you because you had something that was solid and it hooked them in. And that's why we call it the hook. You've got to hook them in. And so we really focus on these hooks in our academy program to make sure we actually direct you. I mean, I'll give you one example. There's several different ways we direct you, but one chief inspector candidate, one of the things we direct inspector and above to do is go and speak to a chief officer, the chief officer if you can, but any chief officer, and just ask them the question, what is it that keeps you awake at night? Now, in my most recent client that I'm coaching at the moment for chief inspector, it's actually one of my colleagues is coaching them, but I'm doing a little bit of coaching with them as well. My colleague advocated to go and speak to one of the chiefs, spoke to one of the chiefs. The chief said, the biggest thing that keeps me awake at night is the behaviour of our officers. We've got 150 officers at this moment in time facing gross misconduct hearings. They're all off on a sick, and a lot of them are going to get dismissed or going to go to prison. So now we know what the problem is that's on their mind. We can refer to that in our hook. So if the question's around standards in the force, how in the past have you maintained or enabled the highest of standards among your teams? We can then talk about that as a hook. That as a hook. Lots of other ways of actually presenting the hook, but what we're doing is we're finding the pain point, we're finding the open wound, and we're putting our finger in it and we're wriggling it around a little bit just to remind them. And you may be thinking, that sounds manipulative. No, it's just persuasive. So we've got a strong, powerful hook, and then we're going to talk about the result. And then we move into all the rest of it, rear facing, and then what we do at the very end is we hybridize it by talking about how we'd forward face it. How, as a chief inspector in the future, one of the first things you would do is X, Y, and Z. And these are the reasons why. So your answer might be a little bit longer, but if you're going for inspector or chief inspector, invariably most forces will give you that latitude, they will give you that time, especially if what they're listening to is something that's very, very powerful and persuasive. Give you an example of this from one of our fast track PC2 inspector candidates. Their board, before they went to the national process, was timed for 1 hour with an ACC and a chief superintendent and someone from HR. 2 hours later, they still hadn't finished the interview because he was using models like this, and they went completely off piste, and the ACC had to draw himself back by saying, look, we've been talking about this for an hour now. It's absolutely fascinating. Whether you succeed in the national process or not, I'd like you to implement this because it's really, really exciting. They actually just told him. I had a phone call with him after the interview, and he said, have I passed? I said, the ACC's just said, whether you pass at the national level or not, I'd like you to implement this when you come back. You've passed. And got an email next day to say, you've passed the force level, you're going to the nationals. Didn't actually pass at nationals, but came back and got promoted straight away. And will probably get promoted to inspector under his own steam, just as fast anyway, because he's doing remarkable things. Is that making sense? Hopefully. Hopefully it is. Right, I think I'll finish there because I've covered a lot. I've covered a lot of ground there and probably a lot for you to take in. If you're at this stage in the video, it means that you are super enthusiastic about succeeding at every stage and getting the highest of marks. And so I'd invite you to have that call with us, just jump on a call with us for an hour, see if we can help you to succeed and get the highest marks possible in what is likely to be an increasingly competitive process. For recruit process, because they're recruiting less at this moment in time. If you're watching this on a recording, it's 2024. November 2024, and if you're going through the promotion process, they're introducing the SIP process, and that looks like a right dog's dinner, and it looks like it's going to be even more competitive, but you're still going to have a promotion board. So either way, if you want to have that conversation with us, check the links below or just email me, brendan@bluelightconsultancy.com, and we'll book in a call and just see if we're a good fit for you and whether you're a good fit for us. Very relaxed conversation, absolutely no pressure. We don't do sales. We don't need to. Quite frankly, we don't need to. We've got enough clients as it is, and the team is only so big, we can't take on that many more clients. But invariably, we've always got a few gaps that we can take on a few individuals. Hopefully that's you, and I'll see you on one of our weekly webinars. I'll catch you at you next time. Bye-bye for now.